Hi, I'm Greg Dell with attorneys Dell and Schaefer, and a lot of people ask me, they say, Greg, how do I get approved for MetLife disability insurance benefits? Now, you got to remember, MetLife is a gigantic disability insurance company. They sell short-term and long-term disability policies, and a lot of people start their MetLife disability claim on short-term disability. But whether you're applying for short-term or long-term disability, the process is going to be the same. So I'd love to give you the exact answer and have this video be your complete guide for applying for disability benefits, but the facts are that every disability policy that's written by MetLife that you have could be different. They write multiple different versions of the policy. They put multiple different provisions in the policy, such as, for example, the most important. Your definition of disability can be different from one policy to the other, whereas right now you may have an own occupation definition of disability, which means the inability to perform the duties of your occupation, but it could be the inability to perform the duties of your occupation in the national economy versus how you performed it for your employer. So that's the first basis that we're going to look at in terms of determining what you have to prove in order to be disabled. The other factor, how long is your elimination period? If it's short-term disability, is it 7 days? Is it 30 days? If it's long-term disability, is it 90 days? Is it 180 days, 60 days, a year? So that's another factor. But here's a starting point if you were to call me and ask me to help you with your claim. Number one is I have to review your policy to see what's happening, because that's the roadmap for everything that we're going to have to do. Number two, what kind of medical treatment do you have? A lot of people unfortunately call me and say, Greg, I want to file for disability, and I say, what kind of treatment do you have? And they say, I've been to the doctor once, or I haven't been to the doctor yet, but my back's been killing me for 6 months or for a year. And without strong medical support, your claim is never going to get approved. When I represent a claimant, even if you haven't filed yet, which most people watching this video either have not filed or they're in the process of filing and they're not sure how it's going to go, I always work with my clients to make sure we get appropriate medical support. That process can take anywhere from 2 months to a year before you even file so that we can get appropriate medical support. I know what that medical support is because I know exactly what the disability insurance company is looking for when you go to file the claim. They're looking for what's missing in your medical records. And how are we going to get what needs to be in your medical records? Through you being educated as to what needs to be in there, and then you working with your doctor to make sure that you get what needs to be in your medical records. It's not an easy process. When you find that you're gonna watch this video and say, now I'm going to go to my doctor and my doctor's going to put in there exactly what I need, you don't really know what needs to be in there because these claim reps from MetLife are trained to look for certain things that are in line with restrictions and limitations and the definition of disability in your policy. Now, the sad thing in many of these claims when it comes to MetLife is that you may have an own occupation definition of disability, which means unable to do duties of your occupation, which most policies are for at least the first 12 months. But regardless of that, what MetLife does is they say, okay, you are an executive at a company or you're a consultant for a company. Basically, let's just say your job is primarily working in front of a computer, which a lot of jobs are nowadays. And they'll say your job is sedentary, which means you got to be able to sit for at least 6 hours of a day out of an 8-hour workday, and you can take breaks as needed or a break every 2 hours. Basically, what they do is just say, that's it. If you can sit for 6 hours a day, then you can do your job. Well, we both know that's ridiculous because if the criteria for your job when you applied was, can you sit for 6 hours a day, then hundreds of thousands of people would be applying for the job that you have right now. So that's not the way jobs work, but that's the way MetLife evaluates your job, regardless of what you were doing for your job. So when I'm submitting an application on your behalf, I not only have to show all of your restrictions and limitations, but I'm also showing in great detail what your occupation was and why you can't do your job. See, I'm anticipating every single thing that MetLife is going to look for when they evaluate the claim, and I'm going to cut them off already to try to say this is just a sedentary job so that they have to consider the magnitude of your job. Now, depending upon what your medical condition is, and my team of lawyers have seen every single medical condition out there, there's this saying out there that diagnosis doesn't equal disability. And in many cases, that's true. We see tons of people working every day with a medical ailment or condition, and as we get older, we all have diagnoses and conditions, but it doesn't mean that we're disabled. It doesn't mean that we're not able to do our work. And so if you are someone, and very likely you've been treating with a doctor for months or for years, the disability carrier then says, well, we don't dispute your diagnosis, but you've been working like this for years. What changed? Why now are you seeking disability? And that's what we have to work with your doctors to be able to answer that question and prove what changed. And it's not easy, but it's the number one reason that they end up denying a claim, is to say that your complaints and your medical records are not matching. Meaning you've had these same complaints for years, but you kept working, and we don't understand why you had to stop now. So we'll work with you to get the records to support the fact as to why you had to stop now. Now look, if you're in a catastrophic accident and it's so blatantly obvious that you can't do anything, then you're not going to have a problem getting approved. It's the majority of the claims where you've been working and working through your condition, because let's face it, you don't want to file for disability. You're getting a lot less money on disability than you were if you were able to continue working. So what I want to do is work with you and your team of doctors. I'm going to work with you to get you to the right doctors. Just because you're treating with your general doctor doesn't mean that you don't need an orthopedic doctor, you don't need a neurologist, you don't need a neurosurgeon, you don't need a pain management doctor that's going to support the claim. What you need for taking care of yourself is not necessarily going to be enough for what you need in order to prove your claim with the disability carrier. And I want to build an army for you of medical support so that you can get approved the first time around and avoid a denial. Because if not, you're going to get denied. And what I say is that MetLife's going to build their army. They're going to go out and have the claim reviewed by different medical specialists than what you've been treating with. And that's going to put you at a disadvantage and make it harder for you to get approved. You know, what we want to do is get this approved the first time. The other things we're going to do is we're not just going to rely on your employer's statement of what your occupation is. We're going to get a specific definition from you of the criteria of what you did. We're going to provide examples of what you did in your job. We're going to present a whole addendum to them. Because as you know, if you've already tried to start this process on your own, you've been presented with a claim form for a general claim form, you've been presented with an attending physician statement, you may have been presented with an occupational questionnaire, and the stuff they give you is 1 or 2 lines. It's not enough to tell MetLife what you've been doing. So we have to build an addendum for you, which will be quite extensive to explain everything about your medical illness and everything about your occupation. This is a process that takes some time. It is totally normal to be calling us before you've stopped working. If you believe your job is in jeopardy, time is of an essence. And by that I mean if you think you're going to be fired and you have a group policy, if you get fired and you're not already out on disability, then your policy technically has lapsed and you don't have coverage. So that's a huge problem. Now you could be working while disabled and get fired and still make a claim, but it is very, very difficult at that point in time. So, you know, I've just touched on some of the issues, but the key is we have to build tremendous medical support. We have to present your occupation. We have to really make sure you understand and your doctors understand this definition of disability, because MetLife's going to call your doctors. And if your doctors aren't on board with what's going on, we're dead in the water. We're never going to get this claim approved. So let's try to work together to get your claim approved. The first steps are give us a call or contact us through our website. We're going to request a copy of your disability policy. We're going to set up a free initial phone call where we will already have reviewed your disability policy. We're going to discuss all of your options. We're going to let you know right away in that initial phone call how we're going to charge you, which generally we don't charge any fees or costs unless we make a recovery for you. So we're not going to ask you for any money up front. We're not going to ask you for money to review your claim and let you know. So there's really no risk whatsoever in you reaching out to us. We're available to help you no matter where you live in the country. We want to speak with you. We appreciate you considering our firm, and I look forward to the opportunity to speak with you.